Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. It is such a delight to introduce you to Jason Campbell. Jason's journey into meditation, music, and wellness began 46 years ago at the age of 8, when his teacher told him to never listen to notes, but instead to listen to the space in between the notes. An accomplished composer and pianist, he has released over 100 albums and has been #1 on multiple Billboard and Amazon charts. And by the way, I invite you all to check out his YouTube page because I got to listen to some of his music recently, and it's so beautiful. Jason's unique perspective on music, health, wellness, and spiritual growth comes from his lifelong study of both music and the ancient arts of Eastern health, medicine, meditation, and enlightenment. He is a 7th degree Black Belt and co-founder of Zen Wellness, teaching meditation, Eastern medicine, Tai Chi, Qigong, sword, and enlightenment at their 400-acre ranch in the mountains of Arizona. He's worked as a director of music for Genius X Virtual Reality and created the first breathing course in virtual reality. His music is also found on several performance-based apps such as Focus at Will, Fig Tree, and The Breath Source, and he has composed the sleep and meditation music for professional sports teams, the Vatican NFT launch, and others. Jason's signature program is Breath Mastery for Entrepreneurs, and we're going to focus on breath mastery in our conversation today. And if all of that is not enough to keep him busy, Jason is also co-owner and sheriff of the town of Clear, Arizona, where he's combining Western culture with Eastern wisdom to create a community committed to the uplifting of the human spirit. Oh my gosh, that is a mouthful. And Jason, I mean, clearly you do so much good for our world and you have such a unique perspective. We've had a chance to have a little bit of time together, go on walks. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for taking the time to be here today to share with our listeners.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey to this fascinating area of work that you do.
Well, I want to say you mentioned about the walk that we took together a couple of weeks ago, and we had this wonderful walk. It was a walk and talk, and then we thought, well, why aren't we recording this? Why don't we just have a conversation? And here we are, just a few weeks later. It's the old tradition of a Zen walk. See, it's okay to, you sit down, you have a conversation, or sometimes staring at a computer screen, just like you and I are doing now. But there's something magical when you get outside, you walk, your mind resets, your body, your ears reset, like acoustically they reset, your eyes reset because you're out in nature, and you're able to access a different level of creativity. There's a very old tradition of going on Zen walks. The teacher and the student would go on a walk as opposed to sitting down. The other thing that happens is nature is chaos, and only mankind can draw a straight line. There's no straight lines in nature. And so there's this funny phenomenon that happens when everything around you externally is straight. And one example would be like a city or just anything straight. When everything is straight internally, we tend to have more chaos. When externally is chaos, like the mountains and natures and trees and everything natural, internally, we tend to be more straight. And that's why if you look historically, none of the sages went to the cities to reach enlightenment. They always went to the mountains. They always went into nature. And it's like, oh, I think I'm going to decompress and go to a skyscraper. Normally not. Because intuitively, we all know that, but that's the reason. But I can answer your question about the background. You just mentioned about the walk.
Well, that was fascinating. So thank you for including that. I never really thought about it that way around the reset, the visual auditory kind of reset. I know there's a lot of research around like getting out, going for a walk, interrupting kind of the pattern, for productivity and better focus and so on. So yeah, that was interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Well, we have 5 senses with the mysterious 6th. And if we go back thousands of years, the old sages figured out that things tend to work in 5. And if you add it to, like you have 10, look at your fingertips, look at your toes, and all in Eastern medicine, everything is based on 5. And so there's this repeating pattern of 5 that we see. We see sprouting, flowering, fruiting, falling, transforming. And then, so what they did is they came up with, let's give it a word. Let's give each of these 5 phases a word. Let's get poetic. Let's call it wood, fire, earth, metal, water. But it's not literal wood, literal fire. It's the poetic metaphor for the repeating patterns of 5. And it just shows up everywhere. And then you can have 5 colors. We have in sound, we have the pentatonic scale. We have, we call it the 5 emotions, different organs, the 5 sets of organs. Then we have yin and yang. But here's the interesting thing about this. And we're just jumping right in here. And I will answer your question about the background. Nature shows up in 5, the decimal system, with a mysterious 6th. We have the 6th sense, 5 senses, but then we have the 6th. We have the 5 vowels, and then we have the 6. Back to Eastern medicine, we have 5 sets of organs, and then we have the mysterious 6th organ. It's called the pericardium and triple warmer. And this is like, what? Where are these? They're ghost organs. They're not like real thick organs that you can hold in your hands, but they have a function and they have a purpose. Well, in form, everything that we can see tends to be based on 5, but time is based on 6. So we have 60 seconds, 12 months, 24 hours. Like, time doesn't work in a decimal system. Time only works in the numeric of 6. Now, we can go down a deep rabbit hole as to why. 6 energies hit the earth, 5 reflect back up, 2 come into 1. Maybe that will be another conversation. But that's the relationship of the 5 and the 6. And I put all of this in my music. So what a project that I've been doing for the last decade or so is I take principles. I take this old language, and it's just a wisdom teaching of patterns in nature. And there's been many different ways, many different cultures have explained fundamentally the same patterns that we see show up. Everyone has a different word, has a different symbol, but at its core, it's the same through observation, meditation, and contemplation. And so then what I do with the sound, I take these principles and I put them into the sound and I put them into the music because, see, we have this range. If I take a pencil, not at my studio, my normal studio right now. I'm in my makeshift studio. But if I take here we go. I have a pencil right here. So if I take this pencil and if I move it 20 times per second, up to 20,000 times per second, you and I will perceive that vibration as sound. We'll call it sound. Now, if I do 50,000 times per second, you and I won't hear it as sound, but your dog will. 80,000 times, your cat will hear it. Your dog won't even hear it. 150,000 times per second, your plants will hear it. Plants talk to each other. 7 times per second, an elephant will hear it. You and I won't hear it. And then I forget what the number is, but something like, 1,000,000 times per second. Then we won't perceive it as sound. We'll perceive it as light. So it's all just vibration. So then we go into the age-old question. And I remember we used to contemplate this as a kid, and it was really heady and cerebral as a kid. Now, when you think about it, the answer is very obvious. When a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? And the answer is no, absolutely not. It makes a wave. It moves air. It only becomes a sound when there is a person or a surrogate, a tape recorder or something, there to translate that wave into a sound. So we have this little range that we perceive of sound, the hearing. And the ears are connected to the kidney, by the way, and the kidneys are like the batteries of the body, right behind, think 2 Duracells. And so there's this amazing relationship that we have with sound and we have with vibration. If you go back 6,000 years or so, the Chinese character for medicine was combined with 2 characters, herbs and music. So it was herbology and music, but we can just say vibration. And they use vibration as medicine. So historically, we've always known that. The other example is, and I'm going to talk to the listener here, at some point in your life, there was music that gave you chills. Something happened. But if I have 100 people in a room, it's 100 different songs in 100 different circumstances that gave you the chills. Everything just has to line up right. It's you, it's your vibration, it's the music, it's what you're going through, it's something, but everyone's experienced the chills of music. And that just has to do with vibration, and it has to do with where you're at. But the unique thing is it's different for everybody. And so I have a lot of projects, but one of my main projects, one of the things I was put on earth to do was to translate these symbols and these teachings into sound. And not so it's a cerebral experience, not so it's a blah, blah, blah experience where we create cerebral activity with words, but it bypasses words and then reaches you on a different level. Because you also think about how clumsy words are. Look at all the ideas that we're trying to communicate. We have 5 vowels and compressed air, f, th, t, sh. So we communicate these ideas with 5 syllables and compressed air. It's kind of clunky and it's very limited. What we can actually, the old saying, like a picture is worth 1,000 words, or there's so many things that don't work for words that we experience, and we try to put everything into words, which is kind of silly. It's futile.
Wow. All right. So now tell us a little bit about how you got into this, and even also maybe some of your early experiences with breath work. I'm curious, were you introduced to that as a child? Like, when did that come into you?
I was trained very young. So I turned 54 this week.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. And for me, that's halfway. I've always had my life plan has always been to 108. Who knows if I'll make it? Maybe make it, maybe don't. Maybe likely less, possibly more if the technology changes somehow. But I suggest having a number and having a plan. So that's my halfway point, right to 108. I've had 108 for decades, and that's a very old Taoist tradition about making it to 100, making it to 108. We can talk about that later if appropriate. But okay, so my entry point was my first music lesson. And so my music teacher said, never ever listen to notes. Idiots listen to notes. Masters listen to the space in between the notes. Because when you listen to a note, your mind is cluttered. You hear nothing. When you listen to space or silence or the gap, your mind becomes clear and then you hear everything. And so our very beginning points were our music lessons was just playing one note, gling, and listening, gling, gling, and focusing on the silence. And so because you need silence to create sound. Sound can't exist without silence. It's like if everything is blue, nothing is blue. So you need contrast. And there's also a term called, like, we can say emptiness or space. The word exist is Latin for to stand out. But to stand out of what? To stand out of nothing. So you need nothing to create something. You need silence to create sound. And you can just think you need a canvas to create a painting, if you want to think of it very, very simply. So my entry point was the space, or the silence, or the canvas. And then later on, when I was formally trained in meditation, I mean, we used to sit and meditate. We had to meditate for 4 hours. This is in my teenage years. I realized that I'd already been meditating. We didn't use the word meditation. We used the word deep listening. Wow. So there's many ways to get there. And so what happens is as a lot of times I will get, because I work with entrepreneurs and I hear this all the time. Oh, I'm supposed to meditate. Elon Musk meditates and everyone meditates and Steve Jobs would meditate. Everyone says the meditation and I try and meditate and I just get super stressed out. And I think that, I'm trying to meditate, then my mind starts, I could be doing emails. I got to deal with my kids and I got to make this phone call. What the hell am I doing? I'm wasting time. Okay, no, I'm supposed to meditate. Oh my God, I'm wasting time. And that's what goes on in their head. Like, wow, this sucks. So I will be in the amount of times I'm in a room and I'll say, okay, how many entrepreneurs here tried to meditate and failed? Like 80% of the hands will go up. Because I think it's just what we need to do is upgrade the definition and upgrade the technique, because there's different types of meditation. And the hardest type of meditation to do, especially for an executive, especially for an entrepreneur, is to sit and be still and think of nothing. That's so hard to do. And so I don't start you with that. Oh no, we start with the breath. I'll get you into a state of meditation, but the entry point is the breath. Because if we want to say, okay, what is meditation? Like what is it at its core? Well, we have to back up for this one. There's a wonderful teaching in the word human being. It's part of our duality. We have two parts. We have the human part and we have the being part. The human part changes. It's very different than when you and I were 8 years old. Very, very different. And actually, every 7 years, every cell in our body replaces. And so we constantly change, constantly change. Okay. The being part doesn't change. That's the observer. It's that which observes your thoughts. And so the observer, when you were an 8-year-old girl, is the same as it is now. Everything else has changed. But there's different words for that. We can call that the eternal I am. We can call it the little dollop of consciousness. We can call it the observer. It doesn't matter what name we give it, but that's what watches your thoughts. And that's actually you. That's you. Everything else, you're not your thoughts. Ultimately, you're not your body. Ultimately, we borrow the body. It's a weird rental agreement. I was taught as a kid, hey, it's not your shirt, it's the shirt you wear. Like, okay, well, that's not, I'm not talking legal viewpoint. I mean, spiritual viewpoint. Sure, legal viewpoint, it's mine and it's my shirt. And I can say, well, this is my house and it's my car. Okay, fine. Legal is legal. Spiritual viewpoint, no, it's not my house. It's the house I live in. Because at some point, me and this house are going to part ways. At some point, me and the shirt will part ways. At some point, me and the car will part ways. But wait a minute, let's take it a step further. At some point, me and this body are going to part ways. At some point, you have to give it back. We get this weird rental lease agreement with our body. Like we show up, the terms are unclear. There's no user manual. We're not sure what the payments are. We're not sure how to default on it. Okay, and all we know at some point we give it back, but we don't know when. That's a weird arrangement that we have. So no, it's not my body. It's the body I live in. Then we get into the deeper question is, okay, what is I? Maybe that's for another podcast. But okay, and so back to the training. So back to meditation. So if we want to oversimplify meditation, grossly oversimplify, and see, mastery is nuance. Like anything you're a master at, you learn there's an 80-20. You learn 80% of a skill, of any skill set, and then each detail it becomes more and more nuanced, more and more challenging to get better at it. It's kind of like the difference between the best professional golfer and the top 100. It's actually a small difference. It may seem big because of the way it's portrayed, but it's a very small difference. But the difference between a professional golfer and an amateur golfer is miles. It's huge, the difference. And I'm not a golfer, but just as an example. So it's like when you get to a pro level of anything, there's such nuance. And it's like running a company and being a C-suite or entrepreneur. There's such nuance in what you do. And another word we can use for that, I like to use the word mastery. It's mastery. And so when you look at meditation, so I'm going to oversimplify and leave out some nuance. All meditation is, at its core, is to stop thinking. Blah, 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 because we have that voice in the head. So can you stop thinking? Now, when I was a teenager, I asked my martial art instructor, I said, hey, what is Zen? He looked at me, smiled, and sidekicked me. True story. He hit me so hard. I went flying across the dojo, hit the wall, on the walls in a daze. He smiled and walked away. That was my lesson. This is the 80s. But think about the answer to that question. He had me experience Zen. Because in that moment of me flying across the dojo, there was no past, there was no future, there was only now. I think I even had a word for it, or something like that. That was my Zen word. in the moment. And that was a much more profound lesson for me at the time than a verbal explanation. Well, see, Zen is about being present, and Zen is about stopping the cerebral activity and dropping your inner dialogue so your pineal gland can open up like an antenna, and listen to wisdom, the wisdom of the universe or the wisdom of God. And no, I was a dumb kid. So I needed to be sidekicked to get that lesson.
So you got the lesson. And now we got the lesson. Thank you. And so tell us, how do we do breath work as the kind of entry point
Yeah.
to quieting our mind?
Okay, so let's look. So there's an old saying, very, very old saying, and it's called the three treasures. Now, if you go and Google the three treasures, once you get past all the Pirates of the Caribbean and pirate treasure, somewhere on page 10 or something, you'll find three words: Jing, Qi, and Shan. Now, you don't have to remember the words, but you can remember the meaning because you actually already know the meaning. And it means that we are made up of matter, energy, and consciousness. So, for example, the matter is everything we can see, touch, and feel. We know that. That's something that exists. But also, there's energy. Now, there's breath. There's emotion. So you can't pick up anger and hold it in your hand. Okay, show anger, but we all know anger. Anger exists because anger is a vibrational frequency. It actually has a color. The color of anger, you think it's red. No, it's green. It's actually green. And actually, there's parts of the body where anger tends to hang out in: the liver, the gallbladder, and the eyes, and the connective tissue. That's where that vibration and that color hangs out in. If we go back to what I was talking about earlier, the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water, we just oversimplify and call it wood type energy. And then if you know the 5 elements, you know the color is green, and we know that wood type energy is in the eyes, the gallbladder, and the liver, and we know that the energy is anger. And so a little bit down the rabbit hole, and there's a musical note, there's a tone, it's like sprouting type energy where it hangs out. And that's like the dark emotion. There's yin and yang, there's the good emotion as well. But so what happens is that we have the energy, which matter, energy, consciousness. So the energy is the breath, the chi, the ki, the gi, the prana, the bioelectrical energy, the emotion all runs through that. And then the consciousness is the thought. We could say it's the observer. But just think, if I have H2O, solid, liquid, vapor, we can oversimplify. Solid, liquid, vapor, ice, water, mist. Okay. And the Catholics teach that. The Catholics call it the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. The Son is the matter, the Holy Spirit is the energy, and the Father is consciousness. And so it's a metaphor. Things tend to show up in threes. Okay, so that's why the lowest hanging fruit to meditation is, aside from a sidekick, the breath. I can get you there with the breath. And we can even do it if you want. We can do like a little 3-minute.
Absolutely.
And I'm not in my normal studio, so I don't have music, but we don't even need music. We can do it. So we get there through the breath, and we get you to stop thinking through the breath, because the example I gave earlier, when you're just sitting and trying to meditate, the mind is racing. So you're thinking while being still. You're not meditating. So the meditation in even a split second. So I will get entrepreneurs to stop thinking for a split second and say, I only stopped thinking for a second. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Well, but I want to be able to stop thinking for a minute or 10 minutes or whatever. Okay. But it's really now. See, we can think of time, and we have to be practical and think of time, but it's always you're always here, and it's always now. So from meditation viewpoint, if you stop thinking for 1 second or stop thinking for 1 hour, what's the difference? What's the difference? A moment's enough. Just stop thinking for 1 moment. We'll in a couple minutes, you can get real benefit. In a moment, we'll do a 3-minute, and I'll time it. So it'll be 3 minutes exact. And it'll be breath work, and we'll see if you can stop thinking within those 3 minutes just for a split second. Because here's also what happens. We have this thing called the pineal gland. It's had many different names throughout history, but we'll call it that. And think of the pineal gland as a little antenna, tiny little antenna. And that's the antenna to the universe, or the antenna to God, or whatever, however we want to think about it. But it's the antenna to wisdom beyond what you and I can be wise on. We have this pineal gland, which is the antenna, call it the antenna to God. The problem is we have these two lobes of interference called the brains, the left and right hemisphere. And so think of, you have this little tiny transistor radio, like, shh, you're trying to get this, and the antenna's good, but you got like 2 nuclear power plants on the right and left side of it just interfering. So what do? Do we strengthen the antenna? Yes, of course. That's hard to do, but we can do that. I can teach you how to do that. However, what's much simpler, let's just turn off the power plant for a moment. Let's drop the interference, and that's enough. And then when you drop that interference, now you have clarity. Because see, every artist, and since the beginning of time, when you do a great art, you've had some variation. Like at the end of it, there's something that you say that's fundamentally the same everyone, whether it's a Michelangelo, or whether it's writing a really cool sales letter, or whether it's just putting together a good deal, like all this stuff that took nonlinear thinking and some serendipity and and creativity, and you put everything together, like when you do something masterful and everything just falls together. Because I'll talk to the listener. You're an artist, whether you think of yourself as an artist or not. You are an artist, because what you do is an art. Entrepreneurial is an art. Because when we think of artists, we think of the guy with the paintbrush, or and sipping espresso with the pinky up in the air. Okay, that's one type of artist, but art is creation. You're creating. And if you create a business, or you create something within a business, hey, you're a creator and you are an artist. And every artist since the beginning of time, when you create something great, has had some thought or variation on where the hell did that come from? Nowadays you can say ChatGPT, but But when you do something really cool, because it's an interesting question. And boy, we could talk about that for hours, but I'll tell you where it didn't come from. It didn't come from you. It came through you. You channeled it, and you were the vehicle, and you were the vessel. I have over 100 albums. I didn't write any of them. I don't know who else's name to put on them, so I put my name on them, but I don't write anything. It already existed. I just went out and found it. Like Michelangelo, when he would do a statue, he's like, I didn't make anything. I just removed everything that it wasn't. So it was about removal. It wasn't about addition. In business, we call that addition through subtraction. Sometimes we have to remove first and cut down and cut. It's like if you're going to 10x, you have to cut to the core, and then you can open, and then you can 10x. But okay, so one of the things we're doing is what we'll do in a 3-minute breath exercise, and I'm going to bust out my timer here on my phone, is we are going to see if for a split second you can stop thinking. And here's what we're going to do. So follow along. If you die, that's okay. Just resurrect. Just come back to life. Now, in all seriousness, if you start to feel lightheaded, then stop. Okay? Because it just means you're tensing your neck or tensing your shoulders. Do the best you can. You may or may not be able to do the holds and follow along. Just do your best. And if you do your best and be completely present, that's enough. Like the mastery is in the presence, and that's enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to do some holds, and it's going to get uncomfortable. And it might get so uncomfortable that the lizard brain starts to come out. And the lizard brain comes out and says, oh my God, you're going to die. What are you doing to me? Blah, 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 blah. But it's a controlled lizard brain, because we know you're not going to die. And this strengthens your nervous system, by the way. And so the mastery here, let the lizard brain come out. If it yells, it yells. That's okay. Just, okay, lizard brain, you're going to do what you're going to do, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and everything will be okay, and see if you can find the space in between the lizard brain. And within 3 minutes, see if you can have just one split second of not thinking. And it's going to be uncomfortable. So we have 3 minutes of discomfort. A little thing when I do this with a group, a live group, and you've heard me say this, I will use a overt psychology, overt influence, and I'll say, raise your hand if you are opposed to investing 3 minutes into yourself. Who's going to raise their hand? Oh, I'm opposed to that investment. If I say, hey, will you do 3 minutes? There's a few that'll go on their phones or take a bathroom break or something like that. That's if we're not there for breath mastery. But if I say, okay, no, who's opposed to investing 3 minutes? I overtly influence you into investing 3 minutes. So if you're opposed to investing 3 minutes of this, then don't listen anymore. But if you're not opposed to investing 3 minutes into yourself, let's follow along. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Clock starts right now. The clock is ticking. So eyes closed if you can. Just take a big breath in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth. Now, when you breathe in through your nose, let your tongue touch the roof of your mouth. Drop your tongue. Okay, now breathe in. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop your tongue. Keep breathing out. Now here's the mastery. Don't breathe in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now inhale, lower abdomen. Inhale to your chest. 3 short sips in through your mouth. Hold for 5, 4. Shoulders relaxed. 3, 2, 1. Release. Now here's the magic. Keep breathing out. 3 short sips out through your mouth. And hold for 5. Don't breathe in. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, lower abdomen. Inhale, chest. 3 short sips. Again. 5, 4, hold. 3, 2, 1. Drop your tongue. Here's the magic. 3 short sips out. Again. Now hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale lower. Inhale upper. 3 short sips. Again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Keep going. 3 short sips. Again. 1 more. Completely empty. Hold. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Finish. Inhale. And exhale. And you can open your eyes. 3 minutes exactly. Okay. Again, inhale. Exhale. Okay. That was a 3-minute investment. How do you feel?
Amazing. Really proud of myself too.
You made it.
Yeah, I survived. I had like severe childhood asthma.
Oh, yeah.
And so breathing or the not being able to breathe is a very visceral memory trauma. That's the reason we left Israel. I was in and out of the hospital. So my family had to move when I was 10 so that I could get treatment in the US. And so, I mean, it was really cool to feel safe to be able to do that first and foremost. And I felt so
Yeah.
safe with you. Thank you. And I've done this with you before at meetings and so on. I couldn't quite do at the end the 10 complete. So
Yeah.
about the 3, I took a little mini breath, and then around the 6, I took a little mini breath. And
Yep.
still it was that grace of like, I'm doing my best. And, I really did kind of push myself, but not to the point that I felt unsafe. And,
Perfect. Yeah.
and so thank you for kind of pre-framing that to give us permission to do our best and not, necessarily reach perfection.
Well, the mastery is in the presence, because we can get into a whole boy, all these other topics we can have. Maybe we have other discussions later, but we can say, what is perfection? If Did you ever see the movie The Last Samurai? Do you remember that movie?
I do, but it's been a while. Yeah.
So there was a great teaching in that movie where the samurai was meditating and he was watching the cherry blossoms.
Mm.
And he was looking at the cherry blossoms, and I'm going to have to paraphrase. He said something to the effect of, one could spend an entire lifetime looking for the perfect cherry blossom, and it would be a life not wasted. And when you first hear that, you think, oh, how poetic and how nice, and oh, looking for the perfect cherry blossom and everything. But then when he was dying, at the very end, he looked up and he saw a cherry blossom and he said, oh, they're all perfect. And then he died. And
Wow. Oh.
he was correct upon death. They're all perfect. Like what does that even mean, the perfect cherry blossom? So we have this construct in our mind of, oh, this is perfect and this is imperfect, and that's okay. And we strive for excellence and we can be masterful. But think of when we're going through this process, especially a breath mastery process, and even in meditation, no, the perfection is in the presence. An old Zen master said to me once, I was in a training, and one of the members said, oh, that was a bad meditation. I was thinking and I wasn't focused and I was, all over the place. And he said, no such thing as good or bad Zen, only Zen.
Mm. Yeah. I just love that. I just love that because, and I think in life in general, as you said, there's no perfect anything, or even like, people search for like the perfect career, the perfect whatever. And the reality is that, as you said, yin yang, and there has to be some contrast for us to grow and evolve with others and with ourselves. So I am so, so grateful for you, Jason. I mean, we can continue this conversation forever and ever, and I would love to have you back. I mean, I think a really cool conversation for us to have would be around dichotomies, a little bit more around kind of paradox and polarization and things like that, because I can just see that you really have a good grasp of all of that. So would love to have you back on the show. For today, I really want to thank you for giving from your heart, just being present and flowing in this conversation. We kind of said at the beginning, we'll let it go wherever it wants to
Yeah.
go, because there is something that's moving through us in what's highest and best for all of our listeners and viewers, which I know we both care for. And so thank you again. How can people learn more about your amazing music, your programs, about Cleater, and how to visit there?
If you go to zenpiano.com, that has music on the information, the breath mastery for entrepreneurs training, there's no website for it. It's invitation only. It's like Fight Club. So you have to send an email and say you heard it, and then there's a whole process to get into that. But on the Zen Piano, you can find links to Spotify, YouTube, and all that. I do a new album every month. The fourth Friday of each month, I do a new album, and every week I do a new 3-hour YouTube music meditation. Like meditation is for background. Each one has like a different mood or a different energy you're going to do. And then you can also go to zenwellness.com, and that says a little bit about also the town and the ranch and some of the stuff we're doing. And I'll give you one more website to go to, What's Your Cleater? And that's the town of Cleater, Arizona, whatsyourcleater.com. And that's a metaphor of what's your cleater is what's something that's beyond your skill set. Because when we bought the town, I have no idea how to run a town. I don't know what I'm doing. And I still don't. We're just making it up as we go along. We're building the road one brick ahead of the army.
Well, I honor your creativity and that spirit of growth and figuring things out and just loving yourself and others. And thank you again for your time and your wisdom with us today.
Hey, thank you. All right. Thank you for having me.